The Institute for the Study of Peak States presents the first International Psychoimmunology and Psychobiology Research Symposium, The Inner Peace Project, presented by Mary Pellicer.
Okay, so Dr. Mary has a vision, a dream for the future of Yakima, the city where she lives. The seed for this dream was planted 22 years ago. It has been watered and fertilised over the years. It has come close to dying at times, but now a dream tree has grown from that tiny seed. It is time for the tree to bloom and eventually bear fruit. Dr. Mary would like to share with you the Inner Peace Project. Over to you, Mary.
Thank you, Shane. It wasn't there. It was gone, completely and utterly gone. 22 years ago, I was a wife, the mother of 2 delightful young boys, and a partner in a consulting firm. One day in 1998, if I kept a diary, I would know exactly which day, but I don't. I woke as usual, went downstairs to my home office, and stared at my desk, piled high with work. It wasn't there. Well, the desk was there. It looked the same. I still had the same mountain of work to do for my consulting business, but it wasn't there. That knot of tension and stress in my gut was gone. Something had changed, and I felt very different. I didn't know what to make of it, but it was there the next day, and the next day, and the next day. I felt calm and peaceful, despite living my same life. Life just seemed to roll along more smoothly. Things that would have previously irritated me and ruined my day just rolled off me like water off a duck's back. Here's what had happened. After I had left practicing conventional medicine, I became obsessed with finding the essence of healing. I did a lot of exploring and workshop hopping. At one workshop, an energy workshop, someone taught me EFT, the Emotional Freedom Technique, developed by Gary Craig. I became hooked. I practiced on friends, I practiced on family, but I especially practiced on myself. I did EFT every day, multiple times a day, all day long. Anytime anything got triggered, I did EFT on it for a year. It was after all of that tapping that I did that I woke up one day feeling so different. I asked my friends what they thought was going on. They looked at me like I was maybe crazy. I finally mentioned what was going on to Grant McFedridge, as we had struck up a correspondence at that time after meeting on Gary Craig's EFT listserv. He said, "Mary, wait just 2 weeks. I'm going to get up my brand new ISPS website. It's about to go up. That's where you'll find the answers." So 2 weeks later, when the website went live for the first time, I looked at the characteristics he had listed on there for various peak states of consciousness. I got to one, and the characteristics were matching how I felt. Check, check, check. Bingo! I wasn't crazy. I had entered the inner peace peak state of consciousness. Back then, I didn't even know there was such a thing as a peak state of consciousness. But I was quickly hooked, and inner peace became my new status quo. And for the last 22 years, I have been in that same state most of the time. When I have a big enough upset to kick me out of the state, and this does happen occasionally, but it feels like hell. It's like, how did I ever survive and live with these feelings? And I do everything in my power to get my state back. But what is a peak state? Let me try to explain. Maybe sometime you've had a moment, a day, maybe even a week, where you felt absolutely wonderful. For a brief moment of time, time, it was effortless almost living. It was like having heaven on earth all around you. Actually, when we look, many people have had moments like this. Back in the 1960s, Dr. Abraham Maslow of Maslow's hierarchy fame, he studied these and he called them peak experiences. In fact, he wrote this little book, not well known, called Religions, Values, and Peak Experiences, where he reports his research. And he basically did that, ask a bunch of people if they've ever had moments like this. And a bunch of them had. Though many people have them, they're usually only kind of momentary aberrations in people's real experience of life. But wouldn't it be amazing if life could be like that every day? That is a peak state, when you live in a fundamentally more positive, more functional state than average consciousness. As I found out, it turns out that a small percentage of people live nearly continuously in one or more of these incredible peak states of consciousness. And at the Institute, we believe that these states are the birthright of every man, woman, and child in the world. For the inner peace peak state, the main characteristic is that your past is no longer traumatic. When you think about awful things that have happened to you in the past, they no longer have any emotional charge, none at all. In this state, you're actually in the present and responding to what is actually going on around you rather than to traumatic feelings from the past being triggered into the present. You have an underlying feeling of calmness no matter what is going on, which turns out to be what being in the present really feels like. It's not that you don't have emotions, but your emotions are now in proportion to whatever is happening to you. You've lost your emotional hot buttons. Since the vast majority of people's daily problems are created by past emotional traumatic material that's surfacing into the present, you can imagine how much better people would feel if they were in this state. And as it turns out, at the Institute, we know how to boost people into this inner peace peak state. And the process is the same for everyone. Our success rate is probably about 80 to 90% with the more robust process that we use in the Institute, as opposed to the 30% I believe Grant talked about, the free process we have on the web. Let me read you a few comments from people who have done the process and have entered inner peace. One person said, "It feels like the weight of the world has been lifted." Someone else, "I'm grateful that I am no longer numb, no longer raging and angry or hurt or feeling betrayed or feeling self-violence. I feel joyous and peaceful." Someone else, "I have a constant feeling of peace in all my being, something always present, deep and reassuring." Another one, "I have easier access to my inner resources and I get into action and solution mode more quickly." Someone else, "The relationship with my children has changed for the better. I am in a much more serene and pleasant state. Even when I am angry, which is very rare now, there is peace underneath. The emotion passes and it goes away." And lastly, "The inner peace process was a blessing for me. I did hypnosis, Reiki, meditation, and various other approaches, but nothing matched the inner peace peak state. I feel calm, really here, in the here and now." Earlier this year, I was talking to a friend who also works with the Institute and has gone through the inner peace process. So she knows what a difference it can make. She and I were talking about inner peace, and we started to dream. We both had noticed that inner peace seemed to improve our abilities as parents. She has young children now. I noticed that in the past. I instantly just became so much more patient and my parenting just went up many notches. What if more parents were in inner peace? What if kids were in inner peace? What if a whole classroom or a school of kids were in inner peace? Whoa, what if teachers were in inner peace? Would education look different? Would it be more effective? What about businesses and organizations? What would happen if all of the employees in a business were in inner peace? Would productivity go up? Would revenue increase? What about job satisfaction and sick leave? What about doctors and nurses and all the other allied health professionals? If I was a fairy godmother, I would love to sprinkle inner peace fairy dust over all of our healthcare workers battling on the front lines of this pandemic. Being a researcher at heart, I propose an experiment. What if we could get at least half of Yakima, that's the town where I live, into inner peace? I wonder what would change. As far as I know, this has never been done. Looking at the effects from having large groups of a population all in a peak state of consciousness. Well, I think it is time someone find out what would happen. And thus, the Inner Peace Project was born. We seem to have all the right ingredients for this dream to bloom and bear fruit. We have a very reliable process, as I said. It's not different for each person. Everyone goes through the same process. The process involves regressing people back to 2 prenatal events, same for everybody. We use simple tapping to heal trauma back at these events. Most people are able to achieve the inner peace state where their past no longer feels traumatic, maybe 3, 6 hours, maybe sometimes up to 8. We have the technology to make it possible to do this with groups of people instead of one by one. Again, trying to get a large population into this, you'd have to scale it. So being able to work in groups to maximize therapist time would be essential. It can be done over video conferencing, just like this one. And with some tweaks in how we deliver the process, I believe it can be done more efficiently and delivered to large groups all at once. Certainly Grant has experimented with this in the long past. He did 2 large experiments with fairly large groups. I think one was 100, if I'm not mistaken. He can correct me if I'm wrong. My aspiration is to get 50,000 people in Yakima, that's about half of the population, into inner peace in the next 5 years. Big, hairy, and audacious? Hell yes. Doable? Absolutely. But not alone, of course. About a month ago, I launched the Inner Peace Project when I first talked about it with a group of friends. Today, I'm launching it even more widely as I tell you about it. And I invite you to join me in making this dream a reality. I want you to cue up your inner John Lennon and imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will be as one. Thank you for watching. For more information, please visit innerpeaceproject.world.